In 1990, NBC canceled Baywatch after just one season. Most people thought that was the end. The ratings were mediocre, the show was expensive, and television history is filled with canceled shows that never got a second chance. But one person refused to let it die, David Hasselhoff. And years later, that decision would reportedly make him around $100 million. The crazy part? The clue that convinced him Baywatch still had a future wasn't in California, it was in Germany. If you grew up in the 1990s, Baywatch probably feels like one of those shows that was always there. The lifeguard towers, the red rescue cans, the rescue boats, the beaches, the slow-motion runs, Pamela Anderson, and David Hasselhoff staring dramatically at the ocean like every emergency on the West Coast somehow landed on his beach. Even people who never watched Baywatch know Baywatch. That's how deeply it embedded itself into popular culture, which makes what happened in 1990 almost impossible to believe. Because NBC looked at the show and saw a failure. The ratings weren't terrible, but they weren't great either. And Baywatch wasn't cheap. Filming on beaches meant weather problems, equipment problems, crowd problems. Everything cost more. So NBC made a decision that seemed perfectly reasonable. They canceled it. One season. Done. For almost every television show, that's where the story ends. For Baywatch, it was just getting started. And, strangely enough, the first hint came thousands of miles away. Germany. Because while Baywatch was struggling in America, David Hasselhoff was experiencing something bizarre. Germany loved him. Not as Mitch Buchanan, not even as Michael Knight from Knight Rider. As a singer. Which sounds ridiculous until you realize it was actually happening. His song, Looking for Freedom, became a massive hit. He was performing in front of huge crowds, appearing on television constantly. And then came a moment that looked almost surreal. On New Year's Eve 1989, Hasselhoff stood near the Berlin Wall, wearing a light-up jacket and sang Looking for Freedom, while thousands celebrated one of the most historic moments of the 20th century. Think about that image. The Berlin Wall, a symbol of the Cold War, one of the biggest stories on Earth. And standing there in the middle of it all, David Hasselhoff. To many Americans, it felt absurd. To Hasselhoff, it felt revealing. Because while television executives were studying ratings reports, Hasselhoff was staring at something they weren't: a global audience. Everywhere he traveled, people recognized him. They watched American television. They loved American television. And none of them appeared in American ratings reports. That raised a fascinating question. What if NBC was measuring the wrong audience? What if Baywatch didn't need to become a huge hit in America? What if it could become a huge hit everywhere else? At the time, that idea sounded completely insane. Baywatch wasn't winning awards. It wasn't generating critical buzz. It was a canceled show about lifeguards. Yet Hasselhoff couldn't shake the feeling, and unlike most actors, he was willing to put his own money behind that belief. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe for more television deep dives. Because this gamble was only getting started, NBC had already moved on. Most people agreed with the cancellation. There were no massive fan campaigns, no online petitions, no public outcry. When networks canceled shows in 1990, they usually stayed canceled. Yet Hasselhoff kept pushing. He became a producer, invested his own money, and tied his future to a show that Hollywood had already buried. Think about how strange that looked. Imagine telling someone in 1990 that you were investing in a canceled beach drama. Not a technology company, not real estate, a canceled show about lifeguards. If Baywatch failed again, Hasselhoff wouldn't look smart, he'd look desperate. The actor who couldn't move on. The guy trying to resurrect a dead television show. But he believed the audience was out there. The question was whether he was right. At first, Baywatch's comeback didn't look impressive. There was no dramatic relaunch, no giant marketing campaign, no Hollywood celebration. The show simply returned through syndication, quietly, one station at a time, one country at a time, one market at a time. And that's exactly why nobody noticed what was happening. Baywatch wasn't roaring back. It was sneaking back. Then people started watching. Then more people started watching. Then even more. Germany embraced it. So did the United Kingdom, Australia, France, Italy. One country after another discovered Baywatch. And suddenly something strange happened. The very things NBC disliked about the show became its greatest strengths. The stories were simple. The action was easy to follow. You didn't need to understand every line of dialogue. A rescue is a rescue. Danger is danger. A beach is a beach. Whether you're watching in California, Berlin, Sydney, or London, Baywatch traveled really well. And every year, NBC's decision looked worse. Remember, this wasn't some tiny local station making a mistake. This was NBC, one of the biggest television networks in America. And somehow, the beach drama they had abandoned was becoming a worldwide success. At that point, Baywatch was already proving people wrong, but it still wasn't the Baywatch most people remember. Then, the show found its rocket fuel, Pamela Anderson. Today, it's impossible to separate Pamela Anderson from Baywatch. But here's the interesting thing. She didn't save the show. By the time she joined the cast, Baywatch was already succeeding. What she did was turn success into obsession. Suddenly, Baywatch wasn't just popular, it was unavoidable. Magazine covers, talk shows, tabloid headlines, international press. It seemed like Baywatch was everywhere. And so was Pamela Anderson. The show stopped being just a television series. It became a symbol of the 1990s. The red swimsuits, the California sunshine, the fantasy that every problem could be solved before the credits rolled. For millions of viewers, Baywatch wasn't really about lifeguards. It was about escape. An hour of sunshine. An hour where life felt simpler. And while critics mocked it, audiences couldn't get enough. Reviewers rolled their eyes. Comedians made jokes. Television critics dismissed it as shallow. Meanwhile, the audience kept growing. Then tens of millions were watching. Then hundreds of millions. At some point, criticism stopped mattering. Baywatch wasn't trying to be sophisticated. It was trying to entertain people. And it turned out there was an enormous audience for that. By the mid-1990s, Baywatch had become one of the biggest television exports in history. It aired in more than 140 countries. At its peak, it reportedly reached over 1 billion viewers worldwide. 1 billion. That's not a hit television show. That's a population. Think about how absurd that is. NBC canceled a show that would eventually become one of the most watched programs on the planet. And now we finally arrive at the question that started this story. What did David Hasselhoff get out of all this? Quite a lot. Years later, the canceled lifeguard show NBC threw away would reportedly make David Hasselhoff around $100 million. Not because he was the highest paid actor on television, not because he negotiated some unbelievable salary, because he owned a piece of the show. That's the detail most viewers never knew. While other actors collected paychecks, Hasselhoff had something far more valuable: ownership. As Baywatch grew, his investment grew. As Baywatch expanded internationally, his stake became more valuable. The bigger Baywatch became, the more money he made. Looking back, it all seems obvious. Of course Baywatch would work internationally. Of course the audience was there. Of course ownership was smart. But that's hindsight. Back in 1990, none of it was guaranteed. The syndication strategy could have failed. The audience might never have appeared. Baywatch could have disappeared completely. Instead, it became one of the greatest comeback stories in television history. And that's the part many people forget. Today, millions remember Baywatch. The beaches, the lifeguard towers, the red swimsuits, the slow-motion runs. But far fewer remember how close the show came to disappearing forever. Or that one actor refused to let that happen. Maybe the clue was there all along. While NBC executives were studying ratings reports in America, David Hasselhoff was standing in front of massive crowds in Germany. He was seeing something they weren't, a world much bigger than the one they were measuring. NBC saw a canceled television show. David Hasselhoff saw a global audience. And in the end, that difference was worth millions. Not because he knew exactly what would happen, not because he was some genius who could predict the future, but because he was willing to see value where everyone else saw failure. NBC saw a failed television show. David Hasselhoff saw $100 million. And somehow, he was right. But this wasn't the only cast whose story took a surprising turn. Some of the biggest shows of the 90s had behind-the-scenes moments that completely changed their legacy. And one of them is even more shocking than this. If you think this story was unexpected, wait until you see what happened next. Click the video on your screen now, and if you enjoyed this story, give the video a like. Subscribe for more television deep dives every week. And let us know in the comments, was David Hasselhoff lucky, or did he simply see something everyone else missed?